This is Wraith from Wraith Rain. I'm an author of serialized gay romance fiction. Every week on this podcast, I'll be reading a chapter from one of my gay fantasy shifter serials called Dragon's Reign. I'll explain at the break how you can find out more about this story and others I write. So let's get to it. Chapter 38, Can't Let You Go. The table exploded, with everyone speaking at once. Even Caden was speaking, but he couldn't hear himself talk over the fray. He knew he said some things that were angry, frightened, indignant, and something about wanting to punch Illarion right in that smug face of his. But at the same time, the guy reminded him of Dolph Lundgren from the Rocky movies, not to mention Aquaman. So he was big and blonde and rather terrifying in that poison green silk robe he wore. Didn't he have poison breath? Wasn't that his secret power? It fit him, gassing people. Somehow, Chione was able to silence the room as she turned to Valerius and said, "You must give a press conference, my king. They need your settling presence." "It will look like I am responding to Illarion's ridiculous statements," Valerius said, "as if he is setting the ground over which we battle. He is not so powerful as that." The Dragon's King's powerful hands were on the table. They clenched into fists. Caden could feel the rage building up inside of him like bubbling magma deep in a volcano. Illarion had pushed Valerius too far. Iolaire awakened at that moment, blinking and sleepy, making a murmuring sound, asking what was wrong. Caden didn't know what to say. Things had just gone from bad to worse, and though all of this was because of him and Iolaire, rather, they were sitting there like children, expecting everyone else to make decisions for them. Yet this was their life, wasn't it? They were the ones that were going to affect things, and yet they seemed incapable of making any decisions. And if he were truthful with himself, what he really wanted to do was grab Valerius' hands and run up to his bedroom to hide. "Yeah, that makes me a great leader," Caden thought. "I realize that, Valerius, but the unrest has continued on too long without your voice being raised. People feel that you are remote and do not understand them," Chione objected. Valerius' eyes blazed redly. "And some pretty words from me will change that, Chione?" "Or roaring," Chione suggested with a twitch of her lips, teasing Valerius even though he looked rather imposing at that moment, all bristling and fiery-eyed. "You are very good at roaring, King Valerius." Valerius narrowed his eyes at her. "Sometimes, Chione, I do not think you are as respectful as you should be." "Probably not, my king, but my respect for you is boundless. If I do not express it properly at all times, I am very sorry." She crossed one hand over her breast and bowed her head. She was still smiling, though, in that way of hers that somehow made the bow ironic. Rose's lips were twitching as she watched Chione with wide-eyed appreciation. It was rather like how Tilly looked at her. Valerius murmured. "I know I have to speak, but the truth is that actions speak louder than words. If there were only some way to convey my absolute contempt for that bastard Illarion and show the wrongness of his words." And in that moment, Caden had an idea of exactly how to do that. It was a crazy idea. Everyone would probably shoot it down, and yet it would do what Valerius hoped, and it would get Caden and Iolaire off the sidelines and made part of the action. Valerius continued, "And what would you have me say, Chione? That the White Dragon Shifter does not believe that Illarion is his or her mate? The reporters will simply ask me, how do I know this? And even if I tell them that I've spoken to the White Dragon Shifter, some will believe I am not telling the truth, which will be worse than if I said nothing at all." "Unless the White Dragon Shifter is right there with you," Caden broke in. Everyone's eyes in the room turned to him. Caden squirmed a bit under the scrutiny. Iolaire yawned and made a cooing sound. It was looking for Raziel. Their mother's eyes went wide. "But Caden, I thought you didn't want to be known as the White Dragon Shifter. You shouldn't let a bully like Illarion push you into anything." "And this might be the worst time to reveal yourself, son," their father added with a frown. "The last thing anyone wants is for that creature to know who you are. That will put a bullseye on your chest." Illarion is pretty scary, Caden, and he doesn't look like he takes no for an answer. Tilly pressed her hands together in front of her as if in prayer, and her eyes were huge. I hope you forgive me for saying this, Caden, but you're not ready for prime time yet, Rose said gently. I'm not ready? I said yet. You will be. I know you will be, Rose quickly amended. You're so earnest and kind and all of those things, but reporters rip that kind of person to shreds. Everything you intend to say will be turned around and made to seem to say something you don't mean. Valerius's eyes were boring into him. I can handle Illarion, Caden. You need not be afraid. I know you can, and that's my plan. You're all right about everything you're saying. I'm not ready for this yet, and I don't want to expose who I truly am, especially not because of that asshole Illarion. Caden licked his lips. And Valerius, I know that you can handle Illarion better than anyone. You can handle all of it. So that's why I want you to speak for me, but I want people to believe that you're speaking for me. So there's an easy solution to that. Caden caught all of their eyes. You have a press conference in the square, Valerius, with the white dragon right by your side. Understanding dawned on all of their faces. Chione laughed and clapped her hands together. That's brilliant. I can just see it now, she enthused. We could make it very dramatic. Totally upstage that bastard Illarion. I think I know exactly how to do it. Yes, definitely. The frown lines on Valerius's face smoothed away. He tapped his chin and nodded. I can do this. Seeing Iolaire will distract people from Illarion's challenge. It will make him seem like the caveman he is behaving as. To claim you as his mate when he knows very well that you choose. If that's his pitch to me, yeah, he's not getting chosen, Caden replied dryly. Valerius's eyes widened. You were considering him? No! God, no! Caden quickly amended. His tongue stuck to the roof of his mouth as his heart thudded in his chest. He thought of that kiss. There really was only one dragon shifter that he could imagine bonding with. But that's crazy, Caden thought. Valerius is, I don't know what he is. Chaotic, amazing, frustrating, mesmerizing? He was quickly drawn out of his thoughts as Chione said, I think we should stay vague on your platform for now, Caden. That will be something you should develop over time, and we can craft appropriate sound bites for it. Chione grew thoughtful. I think less will be more in this case. I would suggest that Valerius tell everyone that your intentions are peaceable. My brother is a peaceable dragon, Tilly giggled. I am at that. Iolaire hooted its agreement. And that you wish to remain anonymous for now. At the appropriate time, you will reveal yourself. But for now, you wish people to respect your privacy. Chione ticked off on her fingers. Any messages for you can be relayed through King Valerius's appropriate communication staff. Further, as to the mate situation, what do you want Valerius to say about that? That I am nobody's mate, let alone Illarion's, that I have no intention of choosing anyone at this time. If that changes, I'll let people know, Caden got out. He couldn't quite meet Valerius's gaze when he said this. What would I feel if Valerius asked to be my mate right now? Caden wondered. We've shared one kiss, and he wanted to drop kick me out of his kingdom not so long ago, so it's not like it's going to happen, right? But if it did, I would be crazy to consider it, right? Right? Iolaire twittered at him and cocked its head to the side. Those big blue eyes told him nothing. Or maybe he didn't want to read what was in them, which was a steadiness that he already knew what he wanted. He just had to admit it. But it's crazy, Caden thought. It's not like it was love at first sight for us. He tried to kill us. Remember that, Iolaire? Another twitter and fluff of its wings was Iolaire's only response. Caden, is everything all right? Chione asked gently. Oh, just, talking to Iolaire. Caden cleared his throat and shifted in his seat. Dragon stuff. Oh, yes. Well, Chione blinked. Did you ask Iolaire about the mate thing? Tilly asked more unhelpfully. His cheeks went hot. I told you that Iolaire doesn't talk. But why would Iolaire need to use words to communicate with you when it's in your soul? Tilly asked again most unhelpfully. Okay, well. Tilly, leave your brother alone, their mother admonished. But I wasn't asking anything bad, Mom, Tilly cried. What Caden and Illarion discuss is private, their mother explained. Thanks, Mom, he said. You should talk to Illarion. Mom! The spirits have much wisdom to share, she said, her lips suspiciously twitching. Yeah, I know. His cheeks burned so hot he figured they would catch fire at any moment. Okay, so back to the press conference. I think that I should dramatically fly down to Valerius, Like he is standing there talking to reporters and says something about how he's speaking for me and bam, I'm there. You should let Illarion control your flying if you're going to land in Dragon Strike Square, Valerius said dryly. Yeah, most likely. When Valerius gave him a raised eyebrow, Caden quickly added, Yeah, I will, don't worry. Because we do not want any crushed reporters, Valerius continued. Caden winced as he imagined a few news crews under Illarion's butt. And then the situation would get worse as Illarion and him tried to fix the problem and swept a few more with their tail. Make sure there's a big enough space for me to land, like a really big space, Caden suggested. It shall be done. Chione smiled broadly as she was already texting on her phone to set the conference up. Is there anything else that you would like Valerius to say on your behalf? Yeah. Tell everyone that I'm really sorry about what happened in the below. I shouldn't have led Valerius there, but just tell them that I'm sorry, Caden said, deciding any explanation that he had been scared and knew would do nothing to assuage the hurting of the people who had lost loved ones or were injured themselves. Chione nodded. Of course. I'm sure that everyone will appreciate that, though you are not to blame. I am, actually. I was just thinking of myself and not others, Caden told her. It was an accident all around, Rose said, which surprised him as he figured that she would be the least forgiving of this. When you're a dragon, accidents are just a bit bigger and more dangerous. He dropped his head. That's for sure. It is my fault, Caden, solely. Valerius's voice was soft. You don't owe anyone an apology, which I will make clear. Caden's head shut up. Valerius, I didn't mean. These are the facts, Caden. I am not being noble here. Valerius tossed his long, dark locks over his shoulders, which made him look noble and royal and all that stuff. Oh, okay. It seemed better to just agree, especially when he found heat rising in a lower area than his face for once that evening. He was glad he had a napkin down there. Needing to distract himself, he asked, After the press conference, can we go flying off together, Valerius? Illarion is determined to prove to Raziel that it does the best barrel rolls out there. Illarion had been rather insistent he say this. The press conference sounded interesting so long as it could preen and be admired, but it was much more interested in spending time with Raziel. Valerius cracked a smile. It was the first true one he had shown that night so far. Raziel accepts that challenge. I hope you're enjoying Dragon's Reign so far. We actually have merch for this serial in our own shop. So if you wanted a Dragon's Reign poster or blanket or hoodie, we've got it. We're not quite at Wally's level of merch, but we're getting there. Link is in the description down below. Tilly let out a sad moan at that moment. Oh, I wish I could see you guys fly and do barrel rolls and chase each other. I haven't yet seen Illarion up close. I admit that I would rather like to see her dragon too, Caden, their mother added. It would be too strange for us to come to the press conference, though. We can't draw attention to the fact that our son isn't with us after tonight's events, their father said. He clearly was thinking this through logically. We can watch it on TV together, Tilly, Rose offered, but even she seemed a little sad that she wasn't going to be seeing Illarion in the flesh either. But what about afterwards? Can't they meet us in the field we flew in last night? Caden asked the Dragon King. I do not think that would be wise. The press will be following our actions closely. It would be best to give them a show, Valerius said reluctantly. Aww, Tilly said and looked downcast. Caden put a hand on her shoulder and promised, It will happen, Till. You'll all see Illarion. I will see what can be arranged for another time this week, Chione suggested. That's something then, his mother said. I'm going to get on a conference call with my partners now, their father said. I really do think we have to understand how this mating business impacts everything and what the law says about territory. I'm not doing this in order to simply secure my son's rights, but to make sure that we can protect all of the world from the bad actors in it. He said the last to Valerius. I would be grateful if you would share that information with me and Justice St. John, Valerius said evenly. There was only the slightest hesitation before their father nodded. The law doesn't change, no matter who knows it. I can tell that you really do have Caden's well-being at heart. I understand your concerns, Grant. You are a fierce defender of your son, and I would ask for nothing less. But I'm glad that you now see that we are not on opposite sides as you feared. We are on the same side, Caden's side, Valerius told him. It was said a little stiffly, but with evident sincerity. I need to start making calls. I'll aim to have the press conference set for an hour from now. That will ensure that everything is set and everyone is there, she said and rose from the table. Is there somewhere private I can make my calls? Of course, I'll take you. Their father took her from the room. Valerius turned to Rose. Would I be correct in assuming that you know the secret ways of this city? Rose straightened and grinned. Of course. You can't be named one of Marban's granddaughters without a thorough understanding of the back ways. The last part was said with a slightly more jaded look. I am sorry, Tilly, but I need to steal Rose from you, Valerius told his sister. I think it will be far less conspicuous if Rose takes Caden to a position where he can easily shift and join me in the square than if a bunch of Claw are with him, even without their uniforms. The Claw gives anyone away, Rose agreed dryly. I can get Caden wherever you want him without anyone ever seeing. Can I come? Tilly asked. They told us in school about the secret passages and reach, but I've never even been in one. It would be educational. That last bit was to convince their mother that she should be allowed to go. Good try, Tilly, but no, their mother said with a shake of her head. You will remain here with me. What could possibly happen to me, though, Mom? I'm with a bee shifter and the white dragon shifter. Tilly objected, putting her hands on her hips and sticking her lower lip out in what was the beginning of a pout. Tilly, there can't be any connection between the white dragon shifter and the Bryce family, Caden told her gently, so you can't go with us this time. I don't get to do anything fun, she pouted and stamped her foot. But I guess I see what you're saying. He ruffled her hair and gave her a kiss on the forehead. Thanks. I promise you'll get to ride Iolaire. Ride Iolaire? Valerius asked sharply. An impish smile crossed Caden's lips. Valerius had already made his thoughts known on a dragon being ridden, but it was Tilly, and he guessed she might even be able to charm Raziel for a little lift. Really? You mean it? Tilly asked, her hands clasped in front of her as if in prayer. I mean it. Caden looked at Valerius when he said it with that impish smile widening on his face. Iolaire is really excited to be your mount. I cannot believe this. Valerius sounded strangled, but then he changed his tone to one of seriousness. I should prepare to go, as I am certain that Chione will have a car here shortly. Thank you for the dinner, Mrs. Bryce. It was delicious, if brief. Ellen, please, Your Majesty. Their mother got up from the table. Valerius, if you would. He nodded his head. Valerius, then. Their mother let out a little giggle that showed even she wasn't immune to the black dragon shifter's charm. Well, he decides to show it anyways, Caden thought. Before you go, Valerius, Caden broke in as he jumped up from his seat. Could you, I want you to come to my room. Everyone stared at him like he'd gone quite crazy. Only Tilly let out a rather hysterical little laugh. He could see her holding back the millions of inappropriate, or rather appropriate, things to say to that which a 13-year-old shouldn't know. Rose shook her head and took a sip of wine. His mother's eyebrows had risen up into her hairline and were making their way likely to the back of her head. I just want to show you it, and, I saw your lair. You should see mine, Caden squeaked. This was getting worse. It was that he just didn't want Valerius to leave, and he wanted some alone time with the Black Dragon Shifter, so his room was the best place. If you wish it, then yes, of course I will see your room. Valerius made another bow to his mother and then to Rose and Tilly. Tilly giggled endlessly and curtsied rather well. Rose just looked a little stunned and waved at him. Caden moved around the table and grabbed Valerius's hand. He tugged the other dragon shifter out of the room, up the stairs, and into his darkened bedroom. When he went to switch on the light, Valerius caught his hand. The window shades are up. Someone will see, Valerius warned. Besides, I can see your lair quite well in the dark. Moonlight streamed into his room, making it quite bright enough that even someone without being a shifter could likely have seen clearly. Oh, right. What do you think? Caden spread his arms to show off his tiny room. He then saw there was a pair of underwear on the ground and quickly swept over to grab them and toss them out of sight behind the trash can. Valerius grinned. It is less messy than I would have thought without staff. Caden then realized that his bed was unmade. There were books everywhere, not to mention days-old dirty dishes beneath his bed. He winced. I didn't really think this through, Caden confessed. I didn't really ask you up here to see this pigsty. Man, Mom told me it was a pigsty, but until I had you up here, I didn't really see it. Valerius snorted. I did not think that you truly brought me up here to see your bedroom, though it is very you. It smells of you. And old socks. Another wince, and Caden ran a hand through his hair. He could tell it was standing up on end now, which made him look like an even bigger idiot. The thing is that I just didn't want you to go. Valerius didn't blink. Indeed, he stared. We will see one another shortly. I know that, but this feeling is not about logic, Caden confessed with a huff of laughter that sounded only half as comfortable as he felt. And so the truth is that I really don't want you to go. I don't want you to, ever go. His own mouth went dry then, dry as dust. What was he saying? Illarion cooed. And then any thoughts or doubts he had were blown away when Valerius cupped his face in those large, powerful hands. The Dragon King's eyes glowed with fire. But it wasn't the frightening kind. It was the kind that embraced him in its warmth. Then Valerius kissed him, and it was better than the first time. I hope you enjoyed this week's chapter. Just a reminder that if you join Wraith Reign as a member, the membership is 15 to 20 episodes ahead of the free podcast. If you'd like to join and listen to all those extra podcasts, not to mention getting access to the other stories and manga on Wraith Reign, a link is down below.